Hello, everyone. This is Unlocking Greatness Podcast with Zenja Glass. Feel free to call me Z. I just want to have a talk with you all today. I literally have nothing written out. There's nothing in front of me, no notes or anything. I just want to talk about something very, very personal. I'm dedicating this podcast to my sister. She's going to be surprised when she hears me say that because she really helped take a ton of bricks off of my chest the other day. And I know that when I go through things, my audience tends to go through the same thing. And so the title of this lesson is going to be, You Are Not a Failure. You're not a failure. And the angle that I'm coming from is, remember the previous podcast I did? I did a podcast, I think I called it, what did I call it? Was it called Guilt and Grief? Something like that. I think that's the title I gave it. And I talked about just after losing my son, all of a sudden this wave of emotions that's come over me months and months later of me just feeling like, is there anything I did wrong? Or, was I a good mom? Did I, you think through things in the past, man, if I would have done this differently, and just that kind of wave of emotions that you can go through when you've lost a loved one. And it doesn't have to even pertain to losing a loved one. It could just be in general. Where you just, as you're grieving something, you feel the guilt behind the what ifs and what if I could have done this and could have done that. And so I am grateful to God that I've worked through that process, or I guess I should say at that time. But I had a talk with my sister the other day, and you talk about an amazing woman of God. I just can't say enough good things about her. And gosh, I'm starting to cry already. But this is going to bless you. This is going to help you. I pray it will. I said to her, now that I've gone through that and, realized that, man, I've done my best and definitely have done my best to be a great mom and to take care of my son. And God has given me peace in my heart that it was his time. I was calling him home. And I don't want to go into much more detail with that, but God was just giving me such peace. I was telling my sister, I said, I don't know what it is, but I just still feel like how did this happen? It's almost as if I'm looking for who's to blame in this. Like there's got to be. And my sister said something so amazing to me. She said, Z, it sounds like you're looking for. I won't go into detail with all that. I'll jump to the end of the conversation. But she said to me, she said, Z, you are such a fighter. She said, it sounds like, she says, God has put it in my heart to tell you, you're not a failure. She said, you're not a failure. And the moment she said those words, I literally just lost it with crying. Because I didn't express to her anything about feeling like a failure. But the moment she said those words, it's almost as if something was released. Because she said, Z, I think that you feel by leaving this on the altar, giving this over to God, knowing you did your best, It's no one, she says, knowing you did your best with that. And it was God's time calling them. She says, but because you're such a fighter, I think you feel guilty by leaving it there on the altar instead of fighting to just still try to figure out, gosh, well, what went wrong? Like, well, why didn't the treatment work? And is there something someone did? She said, I feel like you feel like you will be failing him by letting it go and choosing to leave it on the altar and choosing to live, to let God use you. And yes, you're going to always love your son, but to keep moving forth in life. And I could not have agreed with her more. I didn't know that I was feeling that I was struggling with feeling like, but gosh, if I'm not fighting, or if I'm not, if I truly let this go and leave it on the altar, I almost felt as if I was failing him because I'm moving on in life. And I know that just sounds so weird. If you've not lost anyone, this message, I don't know what you'll be thinking, but I'm going to, by the grace of God, pivot this message in such a way that whether you've lost someone or not, hopefully this message can still resonate with you. When she told me that, I literally just felt in my spirit, that's what it is. if I don't keep bringing up these thoughts and these memories and keep rehearsing what happened, I feel like I've some kind of way failed him, or failed as a mom, or failed as a parent, just some kind of way failed, because I'm choosing to move on in life and to live and to try to be happy again and to try to just enjoy life and keep going. And she said, "You're not a failure. You don't have to keep fighting this battle. You put it on the altar and you seem to keep going back and putting your hands back on it again." So here's the message I have for you all. And for my sister who's listening, because I'm going to tell her before this goes live that I dedicated the podcast to her. I just want to say I love you with all my heart, sis. And I just thank you, because you don't understand the freeing that it did in my spirit. Because there was something in me, and I feel the enemy was trying to trick me, that felt like, no, you got to keep this alive and keep fighting. You got to keep holding on to the pain. You can't let the pain go, because that means you've given up. Does that make sense? And so I just want to deliver the message to you all, because I'm still healing. I don't know. I'm probably going to be talking about this for quite a while, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Just as it comes, before I record, you guys know this stuff is not pre-planned out in any way. I just think through, what am I feeling today? But here's what I hope blesses you all. I want to encourage you with this message. You are not a failure. You're not a failure for I feel in my spirit, and I was thinking about you guys last night when I was thinking about myself. I know that there are people out there that are probably, I don't know, maybe working jobs that they feel like, this really ain't for me. Why am I at this age in my life still in this position, or making this kind of money when I should be so, far along? This message is for you. You're not a failure. There are single parents out there right now who have children and feel like, how did I mess this up? And I know this because I've got friends that feel like, man, I just feel like I should have made better choices, so my kids can be better off, or have a father or mother. Let me just flip it on both sides. Have the other parent there. And there are people that feel like they failed. You're not a failure. This message is for you. You're not a failure. There are people out there who can identify with my situation, where you have lost a loved one, and you go back to those what ifs. So what if I would have done this? Man, what if I would have done, what if I would have, I don't even want to give examples, but, gosh, because I've been receiving emails and messages from you all when I posted that guilt and grief. So this is just not me grabbing something from out of the sky. And I know for a fact that there's many of you that's shared personal stories of feeling like, man, if I only would have done this, if I only would have done that, maybe my mother or my sister or my brother or my friend would still be alive. I just pray that you are healed from these words, that you are not a failure. You're not a failure by deciding to put that pain, put all of that up on the altar. Leave it there on the altar, as my sister taught me. And live your life. Don't believe the lie and feel that you are a failure, because you're choosing to live. And you're choosing to place that pain up on the altar and leave it there and move on in life. Don't feel like you got to keep fighting. Because that's what deep was in my spirit that I didn't even realize was there. Thank God my sister really helped to pull that out of me. She said, it seems like you just keep trying to fight for, like, what happened, what could have changed the outcome. Don't you allow yourself to be tricked and being trapped, where you can't even create, think, do anything, move on in life, use your dreams, use your gifts that God's given you. You can't do any of that, because you're stuck rewinding and rehearsing and replaying this tape over and over and over again about how things went wrong, and if I only would have done this and I only would have done that. You are not a failure. You're not a failure. You may not be where you're at in life right now, where you want to be. Maybe some of you have even started businesses. Maybe some of you all can identify with me. Where you've had companies or started businesses and it's not where exactly you want it to be, at least at this time. And wow, it seems like everyone else is taking off and what's going on with mine? You're not a failure. Nothing sneaks up on God. You haven't failed. I had to have a talk with God even this morning. Excuse me. I knew I would be recording today. At least He put it in my heart to do it. And I said to Him, I said, God, is it anything that I could have done differently? I want to leave this on the altar. Is it in any way my fault? Is there I said, I just want to leave this in your hands. I know I've done my best and I've processed and been through that. But God, why is it so hard for me to let this go and turn this over to you? Can you explain to me where this is coming from? And God put so gently in my spirit this morning, it was like a kiss from Him. He said, how can it be your fault when I ordered it, when I ordained it? He said, how can it be your fault? No, the exact words I felt in my spirit was, how can it be your fault when I'm the one who called him home? That's what he said to me. Those were the exact words I felt in my spirit. He said, how can it be your fault when I'm the one who called him home? How can it be your fault when I ordained it? And I thought, I felt such a relief in my spirit, and I thought, you're right, we really don't have control over anything. I know that there are so many of you out there hurting. I know because I've received the messages, people who've lost kids. Oh my God, people who have kids out there now struggling with drugs and other things, and you feel like, man, I failed as a parent, or people who, as I said before, feel like, man, I should be further along in life at this point, or what have you. There's just so many situations where we allow ourselves to be chained by events that happen that really were never in our control in the first place. That's why I'm so glad my sister said those words to me. You're not a failure. You're not a failure by choosing to no longer be engaged in this battle that was never yours in the first place. People that are fighters, I notice that, and a lot of you guys are fighters. I know, because I'm getting to know my audience a lot more, because you guys always send me messages and stuff and such. I think that we are our worst critics. The main people that are out there trying to make it happen, trying to be responsible, doing whatever they got to do. The moment something goes wrong or doesn't go the way that it should go, we seem to always try to find a way to blame ourselves, or what went wrong, or why am I at this place in life? And I even bet that some of the people, shouldn't say bet, some of the people out there who feel like, man, why am I in this job, or why is my company not where it needs to be? There are other people that would look at us and be like, are you kidding me? You may not realize that sometimes I've struggled in the past with feeling like a failure. And people who know me, they're like, Z, are you kidding? You got this, you have a master's degree, you run, 2 companies, you got a podcast going, you got, you just, because they look at the outside and they see what they see. But people who are naturally self-driven, I think we have to be extremely careful that we don't fall into that mode. I really think it borderlines pride, to be quite honest with you. That's just my humble opinion. But we have to safeguard our hearts when things don't go as it should. You don't have to have a degree to be a success. You don't have to be making 6 figures a year to be a success. You don't have to have a 2-parent home to be a success, I told you guys a long time ago, a friend of mine, she said to me, she said, Z, success is, oh, I hope I get it right. She said it so beautifully. She said, success is doing what God has told you to do in the time frame he allowed. I think that's just the most beautiful definition that I can think of. Doing what God has instructed for you to do in the time frame he allowed. So I'm not going to make this a long podcast because it never was meant to be long. Be good to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. I dare say forgive yourself. You're not a failure. For some of us, it's time for us to let go. It's time for us to put things back on the altar. Know that we did our best at the time, whatever the situation was, with the knowledge and the courage and the wisdom that we had. Because sometimes I'm tempted to go all the way back to my past. You guys ever go back to your past and you think through, oh, why did I let that happen? Oh, I can't believe I let that person treat me that way. Oh, I can't believe I was in that relationship. Oh, I can't believe man, if I could just go back and change that. So every blue moon, and it's not often, sometimes I'll think through events or things that's happened in the past and I'm like, gosh, but then I forgive myself, if I can say those words, by saying, Z, you did the best that you could with the knowledge, the wisdom, and the courage that you had at that time. You're not a failure. So I hope this message has encouraged you all. If you right now are in a situation where, I don't know, there's just so many examples I can think of. I keep going back to work because I know that's a big one, but you're not, in a position that you feel like, man, how is it that I'm doing this kind of a job after all these years? Or how is it that I'm still stuck in the same whatever? How is it that I'm still living with my parents at this point? Or how is it that I just had to, I don't know, file bankruptcy or, because of the things that I went through? How is it that I find myself, I don't know, divorced now, or whatever the situation is where you might be tempted to feel like, man, my kids are out here doing this and doing that. Was I not a good parent? How is it that I'm alone right now and I don't even have friends and people in my life? How did I fail and get to this point? If you're tempted to feel any of that, I just want to encourage you with these 5 words. You are not a failure. Nothing sneaks up on God. Nothing. Nothing catches him by surprise. And I believe that everything that we go through in life, even this tough stage that I'm still going through now, has a purpose behind it. And I don't want you all to be stuck any longer, replaying those tapes over and over and over again in your head, asking yourself, is there anything that I could have done differently? Because I really don't like this situation I'm in, or this situation that happened with someone I love. Put it on the altar. You're not a failure by choosing to disengage from that battle and to let it go and put it on the altar. That does not make you out to be a failure. And I just thank God that my sister, that God spoke to her and she said those words to me. She said, Z, you're not a failure by letting this go. I think you got to keep fighting. Put it on the altar. That doesn't make you a failure. So I pray that her words blesses you, because I can't even take credit for it. Totally was from her. Totally was from God speaking through her, I should say. I just want to help free you as I'm being freed. And the amount of bricks that came off of my chest and the freedom that I felt after that, and that was a couple of days ago we had that talk. As of this recording, it was a couple of days ago. It has literally almost done a lift off in my spirit. And I got to give it to you guys. Everything I go through, y'all already know. I got to tell you. That's what's funny about this podcast. It's in every shown in every continent all around the world at this point, which blows my mind. Every age group blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. That lets me know that we have this interconnection with each other. our personal stories and the things we go through, there's some good that comes behind it because we can reach out and help others. So you guys know this show is not entertainment. This is me sharing my life with you all. So right now, my lesson for the week, my lesson that I've gotten that's really, really, really helped lift my spirit came from my beautiful, amazing sister, amazing woman of God. And the message is, you are not a failure. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to let it go. It's okay to let it go and put it on the altar so that you can live. And so that God can use you. Okay? You did the best you could with the knowledge and the wisdom and the courage that you had at that time. And you're not a failure by letting it go. Okay? It's okay to let it go. So join me by placing it back on the altar where it belongs so that you can live. All right? I love you all. You know I do. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Bye-bye.